Welcome to beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada for today's math lesson hosted by Mr. Douglas. Today we will be looking at more linear equations, and specifically we're looking at linear equations in standard form. And that's it today. Yes, a very quick lesson. Let's get to it. Here we go. Welcome everybody, and yeah, isn't Vancouver just a beautiful place? It really is. And today, we're not going to spend our time talking about Vancouver. We're going to be talking about standard form. And this is a way that you could be writing equations. So we already had something called slope-intercept form. And there will be probably one more that your typical math teacher will tell you. So as a student, you're probably wondering, like, what's the deal with all the forms? Like, why can't we just have one? Because the numbers are basically all the same. There's pros and cons to each form. And today, we're going to be looking at standard form. And standard form kind of looks like this. It's ax plus by equals c, which, you know, if I'm a student, I'm like, why there's so many letters? You really just actually, like, the student version is just x plus y, so get your x's and y's on one side, and just have it equal a number. Okay, that's what you really want to do for standard form. Whereas in slope-intercept form, you know, you're talking about having the slope there and the y-intercept, and then that's going to help you graph really quickly. Standard form, the pros and cons for standards form is mainly when it comes to using the x and y intercept. So when things are in standard form, I find it extremely easy to use the intercepts for graphing, and the intercepts tell you a lot when it comes to interpreting the slope and figuring out what the equation is actually saying. So here we go. Let's just say you had a question that said, you know, 6x plus 7 equals negative, I don't know, 5y. And they said put it into standard form. That just means I need to get my y's over here. So I need to get my y's over there and get my 7 back on the other side. So how do you do that? I'm going to add 5y to both sides. I'm going to add a 5y over here. And I'm also going to just kind of get rid of that positive 7 by subtracting 7 on both sides. And what does that end up looking like if I do all that? Always try and have your x's and then your y's. So I have a positive 5y on this side. My 7's disappeared. And now I have a negative 7 on this side. Okay, and there you go. Now it's in standard form. Not too bad, is it? Not at all. So that's kind of like the first part. Okay, so you're using your basic algebra skills and you are putting everything in the proper form. X's and y's on one side and numbers, like plain constant numbers on the other side. Well, when it comes to actually doing equations now and graphing, you're going to see something that's going to basically probably say, you know, graph using the intercepts. The intercepts. So first off, we got to make sure that we know what the x-intercept is and the y-intercept. Got to make sure that, and you might already remember what that is, but you have x and you have y. For the x-intercept is when y equals 0, and the y-intercept is when, you guessed it, when x equals 0. Okay. So what does that sort of look like? So if y is 0, so we would say this would be like x comma 0, and this would be 0 comma y. You'll see like textbooks talk about it like that a little bit. So I basically want to know, like, where does it cross the x-axis? Where does it cross the y-axis? So you have the x and y intercepts, and now you can go and start to interpret them a little bit easier, and also you're able to basically solve a little bit easier, and this will come in handy. So when does it come in handy? Let's just take a look at some things and see how that goes, and then you can decide, is this a strategy that you like? And it might not be. So say you had an equation like this. Let's say it was 3x plus, I don't know, 4y equals 12. And you have to go and graph it. Now, you might think first off, okay, I'll just put it into slope-intercept form and graph. But if you go and use the intercepts, it's going to be pretty easy. So for the x-intercept, y is 0. So there's going to be a shortcut to this. But basically, for the x-intercept being y being 0, it's going to look like this. So y is literally 0. So you're left with 3x is 12, which is pretty easy math. So x is 4. So your x-intercept is 4, 0. If you're going to do the other intercept, the y-intercept, x is 0. And you're going to go and solve that. So that's going to be, pretty basic. So 4y is 12. And these numbers all work really nicely, as I was kind of being a little bit nice. And you're going to get the intercept of 0, 3. So if you're going to go and graph those, you'd go and find 0, 3, so up here somewhere, and you'd find 4, 0, somewhere like that, and you'd get a line that would look like that, just using the intercepts. Now, there's a very easy way to go and do this. If you actually you literally just need to go and block out. So go and actually block out a section like with your hand. That is the easiest way to go and to do it. So if you just take like your hand and you cover up, this, like it's gone. You just cover it up. You're going to solve for the x-intercept instantly. Whereas if you cover up this with your hand, you're going to go and solve instantly for the y-intercept. So you can just put your hand over things, and it's really, really easy to do that. So that's a benefit. Using the intercepts is also really important, because when you start interpreting things, you need to be able to start saying, what does that mean? What does a y-intercept at 3 mean? What does an x-intercept at 4 mean? And you're going to have to probably know those and start to interpret those. So using this form would be really, really handy. Okay, so let's take a look at what a word problem might look like and why we might want to start using standard form equations. Let's just imagine that we are traveling to a certain place. Let's call it the Death Star. Okay, so this is the Death Star, and this is the evil beams that the Death Star can shoot out. Hopefully that doesn't happen, and we save the day. There are two types of spaceships that are going to be traveling to the Death Star. One is an X-class starship, and the X-class, it can hold 8 Rebel Alliance soldiers. So it can hold 8 passengers. And there's also the Y-class starship, but this one a little bit bigger, and it can hold 12 different Rebel Alliance people, so 12 passengers. Okay. So, what you are given, what you know, is on the first run at the Death Star that you could fill, so this is what you know, you could fill 15 X-class and 2 Y-class. That's what we know. And I want to know, so what do I actually want to know? If you're Admiral Akbar and you're planning this, how many combinations are there? So how many different combos could I send to the Death Star? How many could I do? We know we could send 15 X-class and 2 Y-class. That's one option. But are there different options that Admiral Akbar could go and send? And if you guys don't know this guy, you guys got to look him up. And my trivia question will be, what is his famous saying? What's his famous saying? And actually, it's the name of one of my basketball plays for my teams. So what is his famous, actually it's just one. What's his famous saying? Let's go and create an equation using this information. The very first thing that we're going to need to go and find out, though, is how many total Rebel Alliance people are there? And we know that we can set up an equation like this. So here we go. we're going to make our equation look like this. We're going to have the x, and we're going to have, you're adding y, and it's going to equal the total number of passengers, or in this case, Rebel Alliance soldiers. And what we do know is that the x class can hold 8, and the y class can hold 12. So x and y are the number of ships. So x is the number of ships. It's really important to always, declare your variables. And y is the number of ships. The two different types of ships. And that's what we want to know. Now we were actually told a scenario though, weren't we? We were actually told the following scenario. We were told that it could hold 15. So we can actually figure out the total number of passengers because they told us some stuff. They told us that we could put 15 ships, and we put 2 ships like that. So if you do all the math, you can find out the total number of passengers first, which we need to know. We need to know that because it's really, really important. So you get, what's that going to be? 120 plus 24. So we're looking at, there's 144 total passengers. So what's our actual equation? Our standard form equation then. So our standard form equation to go and solve this would be 8x plus 12y is equal to 144. Okay, so we have our equation now. Awesome. Now I have to go and find out the different possibilities, and this is where we're going to use the intercepts. So I want to know what's the x-intercept and what's the y-intercept. So again, our equation. So it equals 144. There we go. And I want to know the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts. So remember, you let them be 0. That's kind of the way that you do it. So I'm going to let x be 0, and I'm going to solve for y. So using the intercepts, especially with these numbers, it's going to be pretty easy. So the y-intercept is 12. So when x is 0, y is 12. And then for my other intercept, I'm going to have this, being 0. So it's actually just 8x equals 144. So x is going to be 18. So my next intercept is going to be 18, 0. Excuse me. So now we know the different kind of intercepts. Awesome. How is that going to help us? The final step and everything. The final step. So we have to go and now graph this. So we have our intercepts. Now we can just go and make a graph. Now you might be thinking, maybe you wanted to go and put this into slope-intercept form. Maybe you wanted to go and do that. Well, you could. If you wanted to do that, let's actually go and maybe extend that all the way over there. If you wanted to do that, you would have done some algebra. And, you would have, see if I can squeeze this in here. You would have gone something like this. So divide by 4. So your slope is like that, plus 12. So there's your slope-intercept form. So you can go and graph that. You could go and do that. Or you can just use the intercepts. It's up to you. So y equals negative 2/3 x plus 12. Or you can use the intercepts of 12 and 18. Let's go and graph. Now this is going to be the tricky part perhaps, to see how good of a graphing I could be. So we did have that y equals negative 2/3 x plus 12. That was our slope-intercept. We did have our intercepts being 12, 0. And we also had our intercept as being 0, 18. So now we just need to go and graph. So there's our graph. Now, a lot of kids go like 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 12 and all the way to 18. Let's go by twos. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. And we're going to go up. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So let's just go and graph it. So 12, 0. So 12, 0 is going to be way over here. And then 18, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So like that. And then 18 like this. You can draw your line like that. So you're going to go like that. And then you can see all the different possibilities. So what are the possibilities? The possibilities are where these cross. And this tells you exactly where the possibilities would be. So you need to go and find them and see how many whole numbers, because you can't have half a spaceship. So you want to be looking for those and seeing how many you would actually see. So this is actually, if we had a good graph paper, which I don't, you can go into the different kind of possibilities. But this is a great opportunity to see like what the different kind of combinations could be. So an excellent question and something that you might see on a test from a teacher. So there you go. Using kind of, if you want to use slope-intercept form, and then using the intercepts as well. Thanks everybody for joining me in this exciting lesson. I hope you get a chance to get to Vancouver at some point. It is my favorite city in the world. Till next time, have a great day.